my colleagues in the government, Dr. Rajendra Kumar, the Secretary of Border Management, Srimati Nidhi Kare, the Secretary in the Department of Consumer Affairs and also in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Sources, and Sri Arvind Kumar, the Director General of Software Technology Parks of India Limited. I'm delighted to be present with you here this morning. I think this is an extremely important event dealing with a very relevant topic at a very timely moment. India is now, of course, well known globally as an information technology power, and also, in addition, known as a country which has made information technology work for the people through digital public infrastructure. And the uniqueness of India's model of digital public infrastructure is the way that public entities have come together to create platforms, to create a mechanism upon which private enterprise can build and deliver services to the people. And that has been truly the unique feature of DPI which has been created in India. India believes that the public infrastructure itself requires to be publicly owned on a not-for-profit basis, in open source, in a sort of radically open manner on which businesses can build and thereafter grow. And this is a model which is now celebrated across the world. It has found recognition amongst many peer countries across the world. In the last G20 summit, which was hosted in India in 2023, DPI became an important element of the way India's own image was projected. And that has continued to be an important theme for the subsequent G20s hosted by Brazil and now in South Africa. And globally, practically every country that one visits or every place that one goes, the first question which is asked about is how prevalent digital public infrastructure is in India and the way in which it has come to actually serve the people of this country significantly better. So adoption of many of these elements of digital public infrastructure is what makes it truly meaningful and truly game-changing. The more people who adopt it, the more transactions which take place, the more ways in which this becomes important is what makes a true difference to the economy and what gives it momentum. And this is something which is not easy to preserve because there are many, many reasons why people would want that these issues, it should not be as prevalent because, commercially it does harm certain interests if it is an open source, open standards kind of mechanism. There are other issues which come up with it. The way in which services are delivered are much quicker. Many other economic opportunities or, quasi-economic opportunities that people have may go away with this, but the manner in which the services are delivered, the speed with which they are delivered can truly accelerate economic growth and ensure that, the benefits reach the people whom it needs to reach. And I think that's been the significant element of what has happened so far. Of course, at the bottom of it all is the identity layer. Aadhaar today is available with 1.4 billion citizens and residents of India, and people are able to use it for authentication purposes. As people who have worked in government, the importance of having a manner in which identity can be authenticated is extremely significant. Many people suffer from the want of it. And we can well understand why this is important and what it ultimately enables. It enables anybody to be a participant in the broader economy in a very seamless and quick fashion. The friction elements of it, the frictions of transactions are completely removed. On top of that, when you add something like UPI, which is a payment interface, and when it becomes an Aadhaar-enabled payment system, then it simplifies matters so much in terms of the way the transactions are done and the way that payments are made. When our hostess this morning introduced and said she found that street side vendors and hawkers and others are using Aadhaar-enabled payments and mobile-enabled payments, what is happening is something which is truly profound, because what is happening is there's a record of transactions which is getting built, and based on the record of transactions, these people actually become bankable. This is the way in which financial penetration can actually take place at that level. It's a way in which financial penetration can easily reach all of them. Likewise, if you take the health sector, if you take the skilling sector, in terms of the ability for all of us to store our records, whether they are medical records, whether they are our educational degrees or skill degrees, all of them as part of, say, DigiLocker. Today it is enabled, and I have known through my career people struggling to get their academic records apostilled by various government officials and entities. And today it's easy for the record itself to be verified on an API basis from any university across the world, saying that this is the academic records which relate to this person. It makes life so much easier, it makes things so much faster, and it removes so much of friction costs in the economy that we often do not measure this, and we do not realize how much of a benefit it has actually delivered. On top of all this, eventually when we are able to, and I can go on, there are 16 kinds of DPIs that we have launched in the country, ways in which these DPIs have been used, and they have been added on and layers have been built. Sometimes it's amazing to believe that we don't even realize how extensive their use has been and how many people are actually using it on a daily basis. The billions of financial transactions that take place, the billions of millions and millions of DigiLocker accounts that have been opened, the way in which academic records are being stored and shared, all of this represents a revolution in each of those segments of service delivery, and is starting to make a significant difference to all of this. And it is something which is becoming worth imitating across the world. We very frequently receive delegations, almost about half a dozen to more delegations every year, who want to study how the DPI mechanism in India works. We received a very high-level delegation from Kenya and South Africa, which had about 8 to 10 secretaries, equivalent to secretaries to the government of India in their respective countries, coming here to study what exactly is happening. It is arousing that much of curiosity, and people want to sort of replicate this mechanism. We already have 17 MOUs with different countries in the world where we can replicate this, where they are interested in taking this message. We are working very closely with the Ministry of External Affairs to make sure that we are in a position to share our expertise with countries across the world. And what is most remarkable in this is that the private sector plays such a big part in every aspect of both the development of the DPI and eventually the way it is rolled out, and the way that applications are built on top of those platform layers makes a significant difference. Today, if you're talking about ONDC, which is one of the newer DPIs which we are in the process of developing, and what difference it can make to small businesses across the world, across the country, and how they can actually reach out and sell anywhere in the world, that's a significant development which we need to be aware of. So in this sense, every aspect of human life, every aspect of life in India is going to be increasingly touched by these DPIs, and the power of this and the whole range of data that they collect can truly be leveraged in the age of artificial intelligence as well, because ultimately artificial intelligence requires data to make it more accurate and able to deliver better services in the way that we would expect, better outcomes for all of us. And our potential to actually use AI riding on top of many of these DPIs would eventually magnify the impact even more and make service delivery, make transactions, everything else seamless. And we can eventually even look at predictive ways of doing business, predictive ways of delivering governance. So this is truly the potential, and this is truly the possibility. And in many, many areas, this is increasingly becoming popular, and ways in which it is increasingly becoming a default way of doing it. And what is most interesting is that many state governments are building on this and taking it to the next level. Some of them have started doing it themselves. It was initially, the first Digital India program that the ministry launched was something that the Government of India funded under the National E-Governance Plan various states. Then subsequently, they have picked it up themselves and they have been able to take it forward in a significant way. And now the time has again come for the Government of India to try and look at places where there are gaps, address the gaps, see those states where the development and where the adoption is lower, and see whether we can cover this inclusion gap. That is the significant element which Mr. Anup Verma also drew attention to, that ultimately inclusion is very, very important. The Prime Minister repeatedly lays emphasis on inclusion, saying that everyone needs to benefit from this. And our next mission really needs to be to cover these gaps and see where inclusion is necessary, where we have to push digital literacy. Some of these things are difficult for people who are not digitally literate, for people of an older generation, people who are not as savvy with using various devices as the younger generation is. So we have now a duty to make sure that we are able to make it work for everybody in the economy, to have an inclusive way in which we do this. And our mission is really cut out and our work is really cut out to enable this to truly happen. I'm very glad to see that there are a series of panel discussions on a range of areas which would be of interest to us. I would request the organizers to give us the outcomes of many of these discussions, some of the useful suggestions that come out of this, which will enable us to actually pick up on this and work even better in this particular area. I once again congratulate you for organizing this event today. I think it's important sometimes to take stock, understand how far we have reached, and also to build awareness and tell people, inform people of how far we have actually got in this journey, which is truly significant for this country and can be truly path-breaking. Thank you very much for having me this morning.